Buenos días, buenas tardes, y buenas noches. Bonjour, bonsoir, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be on this Thursday, 7th of May, I believe. And Jay Slater case. Let's kick off with many thanks for the tech admin at justice4j.com that resolved the issue of videos not being transferred and loaded onto the site. Um, doesn't seem that it was anything to do with sabotage or hacking. Seems to be, I don't know, such a technical issue that if I had to explain it to you poor plebs, you probably wouldn't understand it. So let's just say it was a server issue. I mean, those of us that understand these things, it just would take a while for you all to grasp it. So let's call it server issue, and we move on. But yeah, many thanks to the tech team that sorted that out. And as far as I can tell, I have been back on. We'll spend more time on there. The latest videos are loaded. The comments are rolling in aplenty. Please, if you haven't joined justice4j.com, do so, because it is where the most pithy comments are posted. And when I dip into them, I get all kinds of information and ideas for follow-ups to some of the nonsense we hear from the accident group and from the narrative in general. So yeah, please go and comment. Chosen background of the day. I mean, this guy, apparently, I can only tell you allegedly who this is. Someone told me this was the rectum of Pisspot University. Oh, checks notes. Sorry, the rector of Pisspot University of West Wales. There he is. And I don't know if that is true or not. But on a separate matter, let's keep that picture there because we have had a whole stream of explanations, um, information, misinformation, disinformation, all muddled up together of late from a certain Lord Lugworm, the slugster himself. Now, this is fascinating in itself, and I'm not going to go into great details in this video. I do need to do a separate video analyzing what El Slugtardo said, because it is both eye-opening, it is jaw-dropping, it is obviously absolute nonsense. But I want to dip into right now why this is happening. Because obviously June 17th, when June 17th rolls around, we are then 2 years entering the third year of the Jay Slater case. And only yesterday did Lord Lugworm decide to put out some of the most important and basic information that we have all needed from day one. And the question is why? Why wait nearly 2 years to put this information out there? Because I think from this point on, it is apt to name this person Sluggy 180. Sluggy 180. Why the 180? Because month after month, year after year, we have been told you don't need this information. This information is for the family only. You all can ask as many questions as you like, but the family have been told everything. The family know the facts. This kind of explanation, this kind of information, we don't have to give you, and we won't be giving it to you. That's what we've heard up until yesterday. But then we have Sluggy 180 stepping in, and unless you've done a 180, you don't really belong in the accident group. But Sluggy 180 steps in and does a 180 and says, okay, a year and 10 months have gone by. Now is the time for certain truths, in Luggy's mind, to be put out there. And my question is, why? Why now? What has changed? Why not put out this information a month ago, a year ago, 2 days after Jay disappeared? Why? What is happening? What is different? Well, I suggest what is different is the pressure on the likes of El Slugtardo and Debbie Duncan is growing and growing and growing. And my first question about that is, where is this pressure coming from? I believe there are two sources of this pressure that is pushing El Slugtardo to have to start saying some stuff. I believe the first source of pressure is within their own camp. As I mentioned, poor Basil, poor Laurie, they were hung out to dry. They went out there and gave their versions of why it could be that Lucy and the friends never went to go and save Jay. And of course, their pathetic arguments were demolished. Baz saying, oh, who would go to a ravine to rescue a friend? Baz, the friend was right by a main road. There's Laurie going, well, got to think of the taxi fare. Maybe poor Lucy that travels the world in luxury couldn't afford a taxi meter creeping up as she's hunting around. And what was the word that Laurie used? I think she said shrubbery. Shrubbery, a very Hampstead word, you know. Yeah, it's not exactly shrubbery, Laurie. Lethal, pointy cacti and thick vegetation. Not exactly shrubbery, but I imagine in our London Lovey's little back garden there is a water feature and shrubbery. But anyway, yeah, Laurie's point was, yeah, you know, if you're hunting around in the shrubbery for an hour, the taxi fare that's waiting for you, that's going to go up. That's way too expensive for Lucy to go and save a friend's life for, isn't it? Of course. So these poor accident groupies that have been out there trying to spout some kind of sense but failing abysmally, I think have possibly put a little pressure on the slugs just to say, well, you know the answers, Sluggy. Just give us the answers. Give the world the answers. Why this hide and seek of we know and we won't tell? So one source of pressure there. I think another source of pressure may well be Debbie Duncan herself. Debbie Duncan has re-engaged with social media. Debbie Duncan is out on Facebook. Debbie Duncan is obviously watching channels like this. Otherwise, why would she get the Daily Mirror to intervene and try to get a channel removed? So Debbie Duncan is now out there. I suspect Rach is out there and always was out there. And I suspect, just a suspicion, that they are not happy with the fact that this case has not gone away. We still have our very live and vibrant community that are pushing for answers that more and more people are coming to. Yeah, I can only tell you the numbers when I look at how many watch the video and how many comments, how many likes, if it's TikTok, if it's on the go, if it's Tulip Amsterdam. Yeah, numbers from my perspective seem good. So that does mean, not that, you know, as a non-monetized channel, doesn't mean anything financially, but it means a lot to me that instead of the audience fading away, as one might expect as time goes on, I think with the Jay's Law petition failure and the TV appearances, the media blitz, ironically, it seems that more people are gradually getting back into this case and wondering what is going on. So I'm just saying there could well be some pressure from Dee Dee and from Rach to say to Lucky, well, you've made yourself the spokesperson. Yeah. Maybe if you do just answer some of these questions, because we all know it was an accident, maybe Sluggy, if you answer some of these basic questions, they might go away. There's got to be a reason why, after nearly 2 years, El Slugtardo is suddenly popping up with answers aplenty. And I don't think it's because Sluggy has become generous and wants to give us, as he's already said. You don't deserve any answers, only the family. But he's done a 180. All of a sudden, according to Slugster, it is important that the world knows exactly why the friends didn't go and rescue Jay. If you haven't read that post, it's because the Guardia Civil told Lucy and the friends not to go up there and sit tight. That's why they didn't go up there. Although Lucy did go up there, she went to the Airbnb. So maybe the Guardia Civil said, you mustn't go up to that last known location of your friend, but you can go within, I don't know, yeah, a mile of it. You can go up to 1 mile away from it, something like that. Because Lucy did go up there, so did Lena Patel. We'll get into that in a later video. So this Guardia Civil do not go to the location of your lost friend. But yeah, go to the Airbnb where he spent his final hours before getting lost. Yeah, you can do that. It doesn't make any sense. It's all nonsense. And I suggested it might just be pillow talk between Lucy and Uncle Ivor. Um, Speculation. I don't know, but the pressure is on. The pressure is on, and it could be, as one or more than one commenter noticed, it is specifically Lucy and Brad, but in particular Lucy, that is always defended. Whenever a video is put out, commentary is put out, it's a topic of conversation, Lucy's role in this whole matter. It is in particular Uncle Ivor. Uncle Ivor steps in and has to give an answer. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Liar Lucy is the one putting on the pressure, Uncle Ivor, saying, you know what? I am prepared to tell the whole world about our relationship if you don't go and bat for me. There's pressure on the Slugster. Slugster 180 is giving out information, misinformation, disinformation. We've got to ask ourselves, why? Why now? Why the 180? What is going on in Sluggy world that is pushing this necessity to start answering questions? But it's good news. It's good news. It tells you never, never give in. Always persist. If you want an answer to a question, don't take silence for an answer. Move on. So, moral of the day is, even if it takes people like L. Slugtardo nearly 2 years to answer the important questions, keep the pressure on, keep pushing, keep insisting, and keep believing that you will get the answers that eventually will reveal the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We march on, we march on. So instead of analysing the absolute nonsense about why the friends didn't go and rescue Jay, I want to switch to the other issue that Sluggy 180 felt he had to give an answer to, and that was this very strange story of Jay's last snap to Brad, even though Jay's phone was not in operation, either because the battery died or he was out of range of the Wi-Fi signal, or both. And this, in a nutshell, go to Lord Lugworm's post about this and read all the details if you want to. But this, in a nutshell, is Sluggy's explanation. And again, why the explanation now? All of this came out in the documentary. That was a long time ago. But for some reason, Sluggy now wants to say what the truth is. Now, Sluggy's taken the data that was presented in the inquest from DCI Higson, which says that, in fact, there was no battery life to that phone at 8:52. I will say 8:51 because I'm sure that's what I heard in the inquest, or I read from the reports of the inquest, 8:51. Sluggy pointed out there's like a little strip of data there that says 8:52, and 7 seconds, I think, was when officially that battery died. And so Sluggy's argument is, and you want to follow this carefully because as a non-phone user, I need your input. Sluggy's argument is that Jay is talking to Lucy, no problem at all. And that conversation is 100% clear and fine. Lucy has repeated word for word what happened in that conversation. Yeah? If ever you're going to listen to me, go back to where you came from now. It's going to get hot. Da, 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 da. Yeah. That conversation, all in 20 seconds, apparently. So that word for word seems like Lucy and Jay are understanding each other perfectly well. And then Luggy's words are, the line drops. The line drops. What's that mean exactly in a phone call when the line drops? Because to me, I'm the ignoramus when it comes to phones. I thought a line was like fixed phone. You've got an actual line coming into your house. So in the modern era, I haven't heard this phrase, the line drops. Does it mean the battery dies? Or does it mean the Wi-Fi signal cuts out? Is it the Wi-Fi signal that's gone or the battery that dies? What does it mean when the line cuts? Okay, if Jay and Lucy's conversation ends because the battery dies, again, This is where I'm looking for comments. My intuition tells me that because the battery is so low, the phone conversation can't continue and the phone cuts off, it shuts down. And I would think, and I have been told this by others, that once that phone has shut down because of low battery, you can't turn it back on and start doing some kind of activity like logging into an app like Snapchat, typing away and sending a message. I've been told it doesn't work like that. Once that phone has shut down, battery's dead, you need to recharge it. It won't start up again. If it tries to start up again, it doesn't have the battery power. I believe that phones, when they start up, are using quite a lot of battery power to reignite, if you like, all of that data so that it's functional. So I imagine that if that Jay and Lucy conversation cut off because the battery died, there ain't no way that Jay's going to reignite his phone to send out one last snap and then it dies again. I don't see that. But I am more than happy to be corrected for people to say, oh, yeah, I've had that all the time. You're having a conversation, the phone cuts out, it's dead, except you can restart it and send a message and then it cuts out again. Okay. Maybe that's a possibility. But when Luggy says the line drops, maybe he means that the Wi-Fi signal cut out. That even though the phone is on 1%, 2%, 1.5%, that conversation could have flowed on for quite a bit longer, meaning another minute, maybe, but the Wi-Fi signal cut out. That implies to me that Jay's moving around, or for whatever technical reason, the Wi-Fi signal faded. All I can tell you is from when I was there, my little phone had full bars and everything. Up by the road, there was no problem whatsoever. I believe everyone that's connected to Wi-Fi up by that road, no problem whatsoever. And by the way, Jay cannot be far from that road. We do have the last ping location is right up there by that road. So, he's not deep into the ravine where the signal's suddenly going to cut off. What I'm saying is he either has a Wi-Fi signal where he is or he doesn't. He did. Everyone I know that's used Wi-Fi at that point where Jay was, just off the road, has a Wi-Fi signal. I don't think that Wi-Fi signal could cut off at that point. There's no reason for it to. So, which one do we go for here? The line dropped means battery died, but there was just enough juice to restart that phone and get a message out there. Or Wi-Fi signal just evaporated for whatever reason, and that was it. No more life to the phone until Jay, I don't know, holds his phone up closer to the air and gets the signal back again and can send one last message. You tell me which one you think Sluggy is proposing here. The problem with all this, I don't need to point it out, but I do need to point it out for the accident group that are befuddled by these things. The problem with both those scenarios, Jay pumping out one last text, one last snap before the phone is really dead, the problem with that is that DCI Higson was charged with reporting on all phone activity on the 16th, 17th, and 18th of June. So we're still left with this question, Slugtardo, the accident group. No matter how Jay managed in your fictitious scenario here, no matter how Jay managed to get that last snap out there, how is it possible that DCI Higson, forensics experts, you keep telling us to have faith in the authorities, have faith in the experts, they know more than us. Well, how is it possible that DCI Higson, on examining the data, totally miss that last log into Snapchat, that last draft, that last send that didn't get sent, but send was pushed? How did the expert miss all that? DCI Higson is on record as saying, after that conversation with Lucy, there is no more phone activity. So even if 1 minute later, the battery is officially R.I.P. dead. Then DCI Hickson is saying phone activity. I would imagine that includes Jay logging into Snapchat and sending a message. Didn't happen after the conversation with Lucy. How to explain that? One of two possibilities. Number one, DCI Hickson decided to lie for some reason, in which case her whole testimony, and I would say the inquest itself, needs to be overturned. Or DCI Hickson was so incompetent, she can't even figure out when the last phone activity was, in which case her whole testimony, I would say, is null and void, and the inquest needs to be overturned. You choose. But you can't have it both ways. You can't explain how this phone activity happened and say that's obvious how it happened, and then say, oh, DCI Hickson missed it. Was she lying or is she incompetent? You got to choose El Slugtardo and the accident group. Which one do you choose? We'll wait for an update because Sluggy 180 is now under pressure, answering all kinds of things. Question of the day, El Slugtardo. DCI Hickson, incompetent or lying? Let's leave it there for now. A lot more to come. I will say hasta luego, adios. See you next time.